meeting to order. If you please rise and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a meeting of the Hillsdale Borough Council on this third day of May 2016. Notice of time and place of this meeting has been provided to the Ridgewood News, Pascack Press, The Record, and Community Life. A copy was posted on the bulletin board outside of this meeting room and provided to any interested parties. Please notify the acting municipal clerk for any disability requirements necessary for attendance at mayor and council meetings. The fire exits are located through the double doors on your left. Please silence all phones and pagers. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember DeRosa, Councilmember Carthage, Councilmember Lewis,
Yeah, here.
Councilmember Lundy,
Here.
Councilmember Rocco,
Here.
Council President Pizzella.
Here.
I know Councilman Carthage and Councilman DeRosa are traveling. Do we have a quorum? Yes? Okay. First item is a proclamation. It's Municipal Clerks Week, and I will read this. Whereas the office of municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international professional organizations, whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Douglas Frank, Mayor of Borough of Hillsdale, do recognize the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2016 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our acting municipal clerk, Denise Cohan, and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. So thank you, Denise. I don't think most people really understand what a municipal clerk does. I certainly did until about 5 years ago, and it's quite a bit. So it's appreciated. We don't have any presentations. We have initial public comment section. I'd like to open the meeting now to the public. This is for time limited, for new topics only, one speaker per topic. Anyone interested in addressing the council, please come up to the podium and identify yourself. Seeing no one, I close the session to the public. We have no approval of minutes. Professional reports. We'll start with our borough engineer.
Busy.
We're ready for you, sir.
Good evening, Council. How are you doing? A couple things going on in town. One thing that's not listed in my report, which dawned on me today. We had a complaint on the United Water Dam project. There was noise from the tires going over the dam. That's called tire slapping. When a tire hits a joint, the wider the joints, the more slapping, the more noise you get. So I wrote United Water and told them they've got to go back out there and fill their joints flush with the top of the roadway, and that should eliminate the problem. Of course, they came back and said, well, you know, they didn't do that because they, with the snow plows, and I got the joints too. I said, well, you got to fill them. I even sent them one of the published reports about how it has to be remedied. So I believe they're going to take care of that problem. Plus, there's a loose metal manhole cover. You hit it, it'll rattle. But they told me that's, you know, they say that's public services chambers, so we'll have to deal with that with public service. And I come out and put a neoprene seal around to make it a little quieter if the car hits it, something like that. I think it's loose too. So I took care of that with United Water. I'm going to follow it up with them to make sure that gets taken care of. If it looks like they don't want to do the work, then we go to the Public Utilities Bureau down in Trenton, and we'll get them to fix it for us. But there should not be noise coming from the roadway like that. That actually may exceed federal standards, actually. It require noise abatement, actually, if it's loud enough. But that is a nuisance, and it does happen on highways and things like that. That's how they put the remedy in there. So that's one thing that's not my report.
Did they indicate when they would correct it?
No, I just said I want it done ASAP, though. So they're mulling it over in-house about what they're going to do. If it looks like it extends more than a week or two, I'm going to go back and keep pushing them and see where it goes. But there's really no excuse for that. I think their damn designers don't know how to do highway design. That's what happened. So that's why the joints are very, very wide in that bridge. The 2015 road resurfacing program started already. D&L paving has already started to mill. If you be down behind the Kings there, you see Lafayette Avenue and portions of Beechwood Drive, and as well as portions of Bell Road have already been milled out, and they're waiting for better weather to put down the asphalt. So that's in the works probably in the next week or so if the weather breaks finally after the weekend. The 2016 grant we got for Hillsdale Avenue, that's $155,500. Sorry about the 500 truncation. Our field work is done. Actually, our design work is almost completed. We're sending those plans down to the DOT for approval. And then once they're approved, we go out to bid. If you want to add more streets to that project, John's going to let me know what other streets they want to add into the project. But we're ready to advertise probably within a month. So it's up to the town.
We do have the list. You did a survey of all the streets and rated them all in terms of condition.
Right.
And I think we've started to identify those, and we will be looking at a few other streets. We have some, I don't use say leftover money and some previous ordinances that we may be able to add streets to the 2016 program.
Great. Whenever you're ready, as I say, we'll be able to pull a gun in a few weeks to put that out to bid on the street.
Yeah, we should get to that soon.
I gave John a sample advertisement. We're ready to go just to fill in the dates, and we'll add some more asphalt to it. We can put it out in the street then.
Okay.
I'd like to get it done in the summer when the weather's hot, if we can. The speed hump on Yester Way, I think you and me all know that Public Service had put a gas main in Yester Way. They ended up resurfacing the roadway, but they took out our speed table. We had a discussion with the police chief, the traffic officer, the administrator, as well as the mayor about putting the table back in again. And after a little bit of discussion, we've agreed to try to come up with a striping plan to do traffic calming through striping. I did it on Weirmus Lane a few years ago with bringing in the side shoulders a little bit as an alternate to a speed table or speed bump. So, I mean, that's what we're doing that right now, coming up with a plan for that.
Is the sign still there? Last time I drove past it, it still says speed bump
It may,
15 with the 15-mile speed limit.
It'd be taken out, of course, yeah. I mean, Tilcom was ready to put the speed table back in, the speed hump back in last week, but we had stopped them until we made a decision internally what we were going to do with that situation there.
So the alternative is to narrow the road?
We'll pull the size in, yes. I got the plans of Yester in the office because we did the road improvements several years ago. I said I can pinch those in a little bit because there's no sidewalks in that street,
Right.
which makes it dangerous with the curve. I like to have some sheltered area on the sides that people can at least walk, somewhat safe. It'd be a guideline, a 6-inch guideline would be nice on the sides, edge line. Like we did at Weirmus Lane, Weirmus Lane, we did that. We pulled it in and actually color coded the shoulder areas as well for the same reason. It was so wide, and it worked out well. It looked good.
Chris, what was the history of why the speed bump was put there? I assume because there was complaints about speeding.
There was a complaint about speeding.
Okay.
One complaint was about speeding, and we went around and around and around, and Council
And so the
decided.
bump was tried.
Right.
It wasn't that we were having accidents or we are having an issue. That was more.
We even put up speed detectors. The police department put speed detectors on the utility poles to show that, the traveling speeds were not that great. Because, you're going to be stopping in Hillsdale anyway.
It's a short.
It's short, and you have a curve at the other end, so you really couldn't get that speed up, so.
That's why I was curious what the history of it
That's
was.
how it
So it
happened.
was a complaint.
It was a complaint, and that's where the table was placed in front of the
Okay.
complainant's house. Yes, you're very correct on that. The other three other projects that are being undertaken from the county bridge inspection reports is the culvert at Weirmus Lane, Saddlewood Drive, and two projects on Saddlewood Drive. The projects on Saddlewood Drive are complete. Weirmus Lane culvert work has not begun yet. I'm not sure what's the delay with the contractor. I reached out to the prior engineer, but I did not get a response on that. On the lower section, the gabion baskets, which had fallen apart, we did get 4 cost proposals from contractors. Unfortunately, they were higher than the no-bid threshold, so we would have to go out to advertisement for that contract. So Mr. Joseph's got to let me know when I can put that package out on the street. I'm ready. Whenever you're ready, we can put it out. The plans are done, essentially, so just let me know. Centennial Field air quality testing. Our subconsultant, the environmental group, I met with them this week, and they're getting ready to come up with a protocol to test any gases in those vertical vents. They're working with DEP, which I've got to intervene myself actually tomorrow about this, to try to get a protocol agreed to by the state as well, along with our subconsultant. Once the protocol is approved, then they need to do the testing within 30 days. It's really merely just drilling a hole in the side of the plastic pipe and sampling, taking gases out to sample them for lab testing as well as some other readings. And that'll take care of our obligation with that. The methane active standby monitoring equipment is being repaired by hopefully our company, right? The company that installed it under our warranty for that.
Are those the new sensors?
Yes.
And they're already out of service?
Well, there are 3. We're not sure if it's the sensors or it's the wiring. It's under warranty, so they got to fix it. The 4 do work, 3 don't work. So, and the 4 that work, we're not picking up anything substantially, which is
It's also part of the calibration as well, semi-annual.
Yes, needs to be calibrated. Stormwater management, every year, your superintendent of public works in all the towns in New Jersey have to file a report because we are Tier A, it's a Tier A report to the state. The purpose of the report is to tell the state what we've been doing in the last year in terms of stormwater management, staff training, catch basin cleaning, drainage inspections, doing best management practices for water quality control, device inspections and installations, etc. Next year, the state is scaling up the questionnaires to make it even more time-consuming for everybody in the state to do. I think the state's just trying to mine for more data. I don't know what they're building a big data bank up down in Trenton. I don't know. I feel sorry for the superintendents who have to file these reports because each year I do get involved with each of the superintendents to help them out. We try to help them out filing the report. It's filed online, but there's a lot of questions. It's a lot. And they're adding more questions to it next year. God bless the state of New Jersey. The train station rehabilitation, I was just talking to the council vice president about that. We helped out with providing New Jersey Transit with some mapping of the station area and the 3 parking lots to be put into the master deed with the town for a 20-year lease. So that's in the works. I think the councilman said we should have that in May sometime, hopefully a signed agreement in May or June. The 88 bathroom community development grant we received, we were over there looking at last week with the mayor and myself and the administrator, and we're going to get a couple of sketches from the architect to get that project on its way and started. I also met with the Stony Brook Swim Club on April 13th, the commission members, to discuss the enclosure system for the lap pool. There was presentations of 2 different types of systems. One, it's air, like an air bubble. It's got a fan that inflates an air bubble, air supported. The other one's a frame, an actual aluminum frame which would support it. The commission seemed to like the frame supported system better because they think it looks better. It doesn't require a fan to operate continuously. It'll conserve energy as well. We then, at the meeting, we sort of outlined some of the cost considerations on the commission side to be considered. We talked about that, foundations, electrical work, sewer work, water work, bathrooms, et cetera. Went through that with the commission. So we're generating some costs for them to help them out with the decisions on the dome. We're preparing under C grants for 2017, we're preparing 2 safe routes to schools applications to be submitted to the state. We'll pick one as the number 1 and second as number 2 selection. Those will be submitted. Those are due on June 27th. They're being worked on right now. Lastly, we're also applying under the grant program for the extension of the Woodcliff Lake Dam trail from Park Ridge to Woodcliff Lake into Hillsdale. That maximum grant is $24,000 and there's a 20% match required by the borough, which could be made in kind services versus cash. That's under the Recreation Trails program. I'm pretty sure that grant will be granted because it's a continuation of the other grant program. It strings it out some more.
And Chris, that just covers the Hillsdale portion of the trail?
Correct, from the boundary line by Coles Crossing down to just past the dam road there. Yep. That's
But
all it's gonna be.
the cost is going to be a lot more than that. That's just in a grant part of it.
Yeah.
I believe the Woodcliff Lake grant indicated that their grant amount, I may be wrong on this, was $24,000, and the town contribution was going to be about $70,000. But that's theirs is a much larger portion. Our portion is
I knew
quarter of a mile.
I knew
something
the
like that.
overall aggregate cost was large. I was just addressing the cost. Does that grant plus our matching portion cover the cost for
I do
Hillsdale?
not believe so. I don't
No.
know that for a fact, but I can stand here. I don't think 24
plus 6 is not going to cover it.
Probably not going to cover you that far. I mean, it's going to be a cinder walkway. It's not a paved walkway. We've got to weave it through the trees. I'm not sure we're going to get through all the trees and along the side of the reservoir itself. And you don't have to go all the way. You can always just go to the roadway crossing because we were going to take it, we were showing it also south of that as well, just to show the state we'd like to go that far, but you take it as far as you can, really. You got $30,000, that's what you got.
And nothing's been finalized in the design yet either, so it's really, it's very preliminary, very preliminary. But it's a great project, and, we're excited about it.
Of course, that's not the trail that I've been trying to build for the last 25 years in Hillsdale, you see. They're in the wrong section of town, you see. We did a grant a few years ago to extend the Rivervale Bikeway past the golf course, up Rockman Road, through the woods, around Centennial, then up to the county park. And that would basically tie that county park with the county park below Rivervale in Westwood. That was our hope, to actually have a long interconnected trail you could bike and walk. It's several miles long, and most of it's already built. So we're just trying to get to the Hillsdale section, and I was trying to get the county Parks Commission on board to pay for their segment through the woods from Ruckman Road to Centennial, to the woods there. And we'd chase around Centennial and then chase it north up to the other county park. That's the trail I've been trying to build. I was eventually going to loop it down to the railroad tracks, run it south, down by yesterday by the library, across the river there, back downtown. It's kind of a nice long, circuitous trail for us.
Yeah.
So, all right, what can I tell you? They beat me to it up there. That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Chris, I think you skipped over B. Is that the Hillsdale Outdoor Fitness Grant? Is that what was previously being called the adult playground?
Yes, that's exactly, yes.
Okay.
There's been no movement on that. I don't know what they want to do with that grant. I mean, it's there. It's being approved by the county Board of Freeholders, so money's there.
And it's just a straight grant, it's not a matching grant?
It's a matching grant. Open
It is.
space is 50-50. So you want the 20,000, you got to spend 20,000.
Okay.
Whatever you spend, they'll match up to you. Money. You spend 10,000, they'll give you 10,000.
Okay.
Isn't that one that, wasn't that approved by council? I mean, isn't that one that the Board of Health was really working on, and there were even some designs for what was last year
I'm not aware of
Yes.
anything that's going on with that. If the Board of Health's
Yes,
working
it-
on it, I'd have to contact.
Yeah,
I
it
remember
was
that.
initiated by the health department, and then there was some plans, then that it was applied. So I think if it gets approved, the health department would move in and try to
Right.
secure funds
Let
and
me
things like that.
talk to
I
Health
remember that Chris and I met with the former engineer, and they went over the designs with us and
Okay.
the different types of things that you could, so maybe you want to reach out to him.
Yes, I will.
And get
If
that.
they're ready to pull, if the money's available, and you got the match, I presume, someplace?
I'm
You
sorry.
have the match money someplace, I presume?
Well, it's been approved, the
Has
grant?
been? The
No,
grants,
I'm asking-
I think the Board of Freeholders is.
Yeah, I don't think they voted yet, did
It's
they?
very soon, I
Yeah.
mean, generally, they're going to approve them, yeah,
Okay.
there's no reason not to approve it.
Okay.
Yeah, I swear they would pull our grant.
Which
out.
means we have to have the money in next year's budget.
Yes. This year, next year, whenever.
Yeah, but I don't think it is in this year's budget. So it's got to be next year's budget.
It's not, we didn't budget for it this year, no.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's the answer. If we want to repurpose something else or repurpose that grant,
Yeah.
there's other higher priorities perhaps in some people's opinions, and we'd have to work that out.
Yeah, the money is fungible. You can move open space money around if you want to. The mayor can, ask them to just put it to some other project that's in parks or recreation.
Yeah.
One option for the borough would be to upgrade the lightning detectors in all of our recreation facilities as well, due to the age of them. And again, this grant would cover 50% of the cost for that.
I think whatever we do, we should also speak to the Board of Health, because
Yep.
I think they worked pretty hard on getting that grant.
Whatever you want to do, yes, of course.
Just a quick question, Chris, on the, I don't know how you formally call it, but the pipe that goes from the hill section down to Wiramis, is there any news on that, or?
No, I'm done with that. I know the pipe goes along by it's just north of the walkway there. Yes, pulls out all the storm.
But it was, I guess the former engineer had given us a large estimate,
Okay.
but we never concluded it.
I
We
can
never.
talk to John about that.
Okay.
John.
All the dead ends, I think, run down and it's perpendicular to Weirmus Road. We'll discuss it.
It came up in another format yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to fill you in on that.
Okay.
But we will.
Just let me know if you want me to take a look at that. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm aware of the piping system up there, yeah. Because we did the road crossing by Wilmer's Lane. There's a pipe on the Wilmer's Lane that it comes down, goes under the pipe, then goes past Amherst Farms. That's where it ends up discharging to.
Right.
I did that work about 25 years ago for that crossing over there, but, okay.
Chris, could I ask you a question? Last year, we worked a lot on Centennial Field. There was a list that was given, I don't know if the DEP or somebody about, because it was a landfill, and there were certain checklists and all that. Is there anything that the borough has to do on a yearly basis to maintain things so that we don't have, in 5 years, a huge, long list? Are there things that we have to do, almost building off of that initial list that was completed, but like regular maintenance that needs to be done for Centennial?
We had prepared we actually prepared a maintenance checklist for DPW to use. Check the fencing, check the gates, check this, check the vegetation, check for erosion, all those things, and you're supposed to do that, frequently.
Okay.
We are working with that.
Okay,
one.
great.
Yeah.
And then I did have another.
There was also one part of that maintenance list that required the DPW to maintain sort of the slopes from brush and trees and bushes and that sort of thing. And we talked about this quite a lot last year, and it was one of the jobs that was going to be given to the DEP. I mean, to the DPW. I keep saying DEP, I'm sorry.
I had a big heated discussion with DEP about taking the vegetation down the side slopes. I was very happy that Mother Nature had finally revegetated those slopes after we built them with indigenous trees. DEP's concern on side slope stability is that if there's a big tree with a big root and the tree blows over, it would expose the underlying garbage. Most of the time your cap is 2 foot thick, it's only to this day. Yeah. So if the tree roots are in that cap, and the tree was to rotate over, it may expose trash. Makes sense, right? Okay. The only problem is that at that landfill, because I know I built it, most of those areas have about 10 or 12 foot of soil before you get anywhere near any trash. But DEP doesn't know that, of course, because there's just a couple of people from the enforcement office. But I know that. So what I did is, to prove my point to DEP, because I'm not cutting those embankments anymore, I don't care what they say, they can take me to DEP jail. But I'm going to show DEP the original contour lines when I started and the final contour lines. And you can look and realize, oh, look, there's 15 foot of fill over this, there's 10 foot of fill over this. There really isn't any trash out there, it's just a bunch of dirt, which is all it is, it's just a bunch of dirt. We just pushed it out to open the fields up to get the fields, basically. So I got that exhibit done, I'm going to give it to DEP to look at.
So are you basically going to ask the DEP for a modification on our maintenance program for that? Yes,
that's the purpose of that exhibit, because I really don't want to take trees down on that side slope. Those slopes should just become woods again. You should plant evergreens on them, whatever you want to do. It's a great thing to have those revegetate. And John DeJoseph and I argued this point with him as well. There's some erosion that's occurred over the last 10 years, 15 years, that DPW is going to take care of some soil erosion. It's not much, though.
We had a meeting with the DEP, myself, Chris, and DPW superintendent roughly in early March or mid-March.
Right.
Spent the better part of a day there and back in the office as well. The wonderful borough of Hillsdale is a targeted landfill because of all the issues that have happened in Morris County landfills. So that's why the long list was presented to the borough last year of all these additional requirements. And now the borough is going to incur excessive amount of testing, a laboratory test for the borough. As Chris mentioned, landfill, methane.
The turbine vents.
Turbine vent testing is approximately $30,000 per quarter.
Per quarter?
I understand all that, but I understand that it was a requirement to maintain the field a certain way. So I just want to make sure that we're maintaining it the way we're supposed to, and if we're not, are we appropriately asking for modifications to our maintenance program that we're
What we're going to do is, once the protocol is approved and the company does their first round of testing, if they find nothing or little of anything, they're going to tell the state, we want to do this annually, not quarterly, because it's expensive. $30,000 a quarter it's cranking some fees up for what? To test for air quality? That's really under your air quality permit, that if you're discharging any methane out of the stacks. I mean, this landfill is tiny compared to the Meadowlands. So if we're discharging any gas, I mean, the Meadowlands was discharging a lot of gas, so whatever we might be discharging in the atmosphere, that's what it's for, really. It's not really a question of danger, it's a question of, are we polluting the atmosphere? That's what it's all about, because we have a permit to discharge methane into the atmosphere. They're just checking that we don't exceed a certain threshold. That's what the testing of those turbines is for. The testing of the underground stuff is more for, is it migrating into people's basements where it could be explosive? That's the underground testing. And as I said before, our active probes aren't showing anything really that's going on the landfill. Our slam bar testing on the top, we have a couple of spots, which is not uncommon, hit some spots, but it gets liberated, but nothing is nothing is leaving the landfill, which is the important thing. Everything is staying in the landfill where it belongs. And most of that is caused by the fact we used to do leaf mulching over there. There's a lot of leaf mulch under that landfill that produces methane gas. It's not trash, it's just leaves and it's organic. But as long as it stays in the cavity, we're fine.
But going back to the councilman's question, myself and the borough engineer are working with the DEP.
Absolutely, yes.
To modify the maintenance plan to make sure it's the appropriate level for our facility based on what was there previously.
Correct, we are.
Otherwise, you're
Understood. When you get that modification maintenance plan, are we going to see a copy of it like
We're
we
going to have
saw?
to get it
when
for
we-
state approval, yes, sure. That'll be on record with the borough. But we've got to cut costs because it's an incredible cost to check these turbines 4 times a year for what I really couldn't.
Groundwater testing, we went from quarterly to semi-annually, and then hopefully,
We're going to try to go annually only.
right.
Because we've had no hits in the groundwater in the last 20 years. It's nothing, everything's benign there, really. So we
I
really,
wanted to, one other thing. The reason why we were hit like that too is, for some reason, it wasn't necessarily being kept up. And our maintenance program, post-closure maintenance program, should have ended. And so we were then given, added a few more years on because we weren't maintaining. So I'm very interested in understanding what the maintenance program is going to be. I understand that they increased all this testing and that the standard was increased for us, but there was a reason for that, or at least it was explained to us that there was a reason for it. So if we're going to change that, I want to understand what the change is, because we did get an extension of our obligations. We shouldn't have even gotten an extension had we been maintaining it properly.
They were talking an extensive period of time that this testing and maintenance is going to have to go on.
I believe it was an additional 3 years.
No, what they told us was approximately 15 additional years.
I mean, in all the testing we've done, and everything we've done, I told us the DEP, the 2 guys from enforcement, the landfill has stayed exactly the same. There's been nothing in this landfill that has caused us to change anything in the landfill. It's exactly as we built it. We picked up some methane in the slam bar tests, okay, but it's not a problem on the outside. In other words, all the controls, engineering controls, are working properly. We shut off the leachate collection system because we weren't collecting any leachate. The landfill was so tight, so I finally said, we're not paying PCU anymore for annual fee to tie into the sewers because there's nothing coming out. The pipes are dry. Literally, there's nothing coming out of the pipes after rainstorms. This is a dry landfill. It's really done well. So we got out of paying the fees to PCU for it because we were hooked into their sewer truck in the back. We stopped paying that fee because it was unnecessary. So it's a well-constructed, well-engineered landfill closure. And it's really, I told DP, so we've done all this testing. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we have the same exact landfill we started with when we built it. So it's a good landfill. And we'll do the extra testing as you want. That's fine. But you know something, comes to a point where let's accept the fact that we're not one of the, 1,000-acre landfill down at the Meadowlands. This is a 6-acre, construction debris pile, basically. We didn't really we didn't throw any wet waste in this landfill. The DEP seems to think all landfills are the same, but they're really not. We use this as a dry waste landfill where people would put trash and newspapers and lumber and timber and asphalt and concrete. That's what we dug up there. That's what we found. We didn't find any wet waste. But in any case, we are doing our protocols. We are doing our protocol with them, and we're making headway with them. Yes.
If there's nothing more, we have an 8 o'clock adoption of a capital ordinance. So if we can come back to you, Chris. in a
Okay,
minute
that's fine.
if,
I'm here.
If people have continued questions. We advertised the adoption of ordinance 1609 for 8 p.m. tonight. Capital ordinance of the Borough of Hillsdale and the County of Bergen, New Jersey, authorizing various public improvements and acquisitions in, by, and for the borough, appropriating therefore the sum of $305,500, and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from a New Jersey Department of Transportation grant and from the borough's capital improvement fund. For public hearing on the ordinance, may I have a motion to open the public hearing on ordinance 1609?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will now open the meeting to the public. If anyone desires to be heard regarding ordinance 1609, please raise your hand to be recognized. Come forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, I entertain a motion that the public hearing on ordinance 1609 be closed and that it be resolved that this ordinance was posted on the bulletin board on which public notices are customarily posted and published in the Ridgewood News. Copies of said ordinance were made available to the general public. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this ordinance be adopted and the acting clerk is authorized to advertise the same according to the law. May I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 1609?
Motion.
To close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1609?
Motion.
To adopt.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember DeRosa, Councilmember Carthage, Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Rocco,
Yes.
Council President Pizzella.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Do we have more questioning for Mr. Stefil?
I actually just had one last question about the Stony Brook Swim Club. What's the next step? You got,
He asked me to give them some cost estimates.
okay,
That's all. They'll make a decision which way they want to go.
based on all the cost estimates, but you told them a few extra costs they may not have.
I
Okay,
have a Stony Brook report too at the end, so.
okay, great.
Okay. Chief?
Mayor and Council, Bob Francavilla, Police Chief. During the month of April, there were 90 dispatching shifts. All were covered with no overtime costs. There were 290 motor vehicle stops, 172 summonses issued, as well as 118 warnings issued. There were 17 criminal arrests. And this past month, the police department conducted the DEA's Operation Take Back, where we took in unused drugs, and we collected over 40 pounds worth of drugs, which were turned over to the DEA. On that note, we applied for a permanent drug box, which I had mentioned to the mayor prior to the meeting. We've been approved, so we have that on order. Hopefully that will come within the next month or two. I don't know exactly when it'll come, but when it does, I will report back to you on that. Our department, in conjunction with Pascack Valley High School, conducted a practical exercise involving active shooter response. So it was more of a realistic approach to it, which the school wanted, and I think it came off pretty good. There's a couple little snafus which we have to figure out, but that's why we drill, so we can fine-tune those things. On that note, the Pascack Valley Police Chiefs met and discussed mutual aid responses to active shooter and critical incidents where we can help each other out in case something like that does happen. And we continue to work on that within the Valley. Officer Sayers and I met with students at the United Methodist Preschool Church and gave a safety presentation, which was in the paper. I think it was the Pascack Press Community Life, which was always fun meeting with those little kids and trying to teach them about what we do. Lastly, last night our department had 3 young men graduate the auxiliary police program at the Police Academy. That brings the total of police reserves to 13 members. These officers will be visible in town assisting sworn members at community events such as the Fire Department Carnival, which is going on right now, as well as a host of other events. And we're just proud to welcome them to our department, and that's my report. Anything else?
Chief, there's another crossing sign coming. Could you give us an idea when?
We're working on that right now. We're actually going to do that at the Hillsdale, by the Hillsdale Library, Yesler and Hillsdale Avenue. Hopefully, within the next couple of months, we'll have that installed. With the help of Jonathan DeJoseph, we'll get that accomplished.
Great.
So that's on its way.
Thank you.
That's similar to the Starbucks.
Correct.
This time.
Yeah. Anything else?
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Committee reports. I guess we'll catch up with Councilman DeRosa and Councilman Carthage next week. Councilman Lewis.
I've got a few things. There's a free hearing screening Wednesday, June 8th at Borough Hall, 10 to 1, but you need to call and make an appointment. Call the Board of Health. There's also something interesting going on at, it'll be taking place at George White School, but it's hidden in plain sight. It's where they set up a mock child's room, and it's regular things that you might think no big deal, and they explain how certain things can be signs of that children are abusing either drugs or just problems, and it's a nice program. It's going to be May 16th at George White School, 7 to 9 p.m. And then lastly, tomorrow night at Pascack Hills High School is Teen Anxiety on the Rise. It's not just for teens, though. It's just anxiety in general on the rise. And it'll start at 6 p.m. with a mental health resource fair. Over 40 local resources will be represented. I encourage everybody to go stop in and see. And then at 7 p.m. there'll be a keynote speaker. But even though I just want to stress that the advertisements say teen anxiety on the rise, it is geared towards everybody. So that was it.
Thank you. That's good. Next, Councilwoman Lundy.
Okay, I just have Stony Brook this week. I'll report on the library next week after their meeting. But as Chris said, Chris attended the last commission meeting and went over some issues that need to be addressed before the commission moves forward with doming the competition pool. And there'll be a topographical study, and Chris will be giving estimated pricing on some of the items, and he'll also work on the RFQ for the project. The pool commission also wants to repurpose the funds that were originally allocated for the office addition, since they canceled that project. And so that won't, excuse me, that won't be going towards the dome. The dome itself will be paid for by an outside swim team, but the other items that need to be done will be paid for out of that those repurposed funds. Stony Brook registration has been open, and right now, again, the bad weather is still playing into some slower registration, but Patty's receiving a lot of calls from potential new members regarding the open house, which will be held on May 28th and May 29th. As of right now, there are 461 memberships, and total revenue is at $264,000, which has doubled since last month. So we'll see. Hopefully the weather will improve, and it'll keep going up.
That's good.
And I'll report on the library next week after their Monday meeting.
Okay, thank you. Council President Pizzella.
Just a couple of things. For the economic development, I would like to let everybody know that we did introduce Beneke Economics to the planning board, and that Mr. Beneke and his partner have begun the initial investigation in the industrial zone. Also, for the Board of Ed, I wanted to let everyone know that the average increase per household in taxes is $150 on a household worth $469,000.
That's the local Hillsdale Board of Ed.
Hillsdale Board of Ed. That's in addition to the regional. And also, the Environmental Commission, we had the town cleanup day. There were 374 volunteers. 5.9 tons of trash were collected in the watershed. And it just was a really nice day. I mean, my kids and I were there, and it was a good event. The Environmental Commission and I wish to thank all the volunteers, the scouts, and all the residents that came out. We had a very good turnout this year as well. Arbor Day was celebrated, and I had the pleasure of being there at both Meadowbrook and the Anne Blanche Smith School, where trees were donated by Shemin Nursery, which I would like to do some sort of certificate of appreciation or something, if we can do that for our next meeting. St. John's has still not had their ceremony, and George White has yet to have theirs. Also, the historic preservation regarding the train. You'll see in the packet that I wrote a letter to Historic Preservation of Bergen County asking for an extension for our grant. It's basically a formality. We have not heard back from, we haven't gotten a signature back from New Jersey Transit because we're required to have a 20-year lease for easement purposes. And so they're working on that 20-year lease. The 20-year lease, because it's 20 years, has to be approved by their board, and their board meets in June. So to be safe, I spoke with Elaine Gold, and I wanted to make sure that our grant wasn't impacted in any way. So I wrote a letter requesting an extension and that all of our deadlines be adjusted accordingly. She saw no problem with that. I just wanted to make it a little bit more formal. One more thing. Back to the Environmental Commission. So we also have a town cleanup day that is happening May 22nd. It's starting at Beechwood, and it's being run by the Bible Church, the Hillsdale Bible Church. And May 22nd, for those that don't know, is a community service day for faith-based organizations. And the United Methodist Church is also looking for a project to do in Hillsdale, and the Environmental Commission wanted to know if any of us had any suggestions. So if you do have any suggestions, let me know. You could also let Meredith Cates know as well. And Earth Day, the Earth Fair was a great success. Again, this year I think that there were more people present, and I wanted to thank Denise for her help, and Patty, and the police, and DPW, and if I missed anybody, it's an event that's sponsored annually in Hillsdale by the Environmental Commission, and James Alba of the Beehive really takes the lead on it.
Can you find out how much was raised? Because there was a good contribution by the town in terms of DPW and auxiliary police. We'd like to know what the benefit was and who the charities were.
I believe one
They
of
were
the
in the
charities
paper.
was the Bicycles for Kids.
Okay. It'd be
I'll-
nice
I'll
to know
find
how much each of those charities got and how much
Okay.
we were able to raise, or they were able to raise.
And one more, sorry. Oh, I have a couple of names, Mayor, if you would allow me next week to give you recommending additional people for the Historic Preservation Committee. And also, I have someone in mind that has accepted to lead on Access to All, which is a committee that we agreed that we would sponsor in support of the county's initiative to have access for disabled people throughout our town. I think that's it. Yep, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rocco?
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to report two things. The Financial Committee met on April 26th. I want to thank Jonathan DeJoseph for his preparation for that meeting. We covered a number of important items. I'll just cover a few. We covered how we were going to approach the deficiencies identified in the audit report of 2015, and we set in motion Jonathan developing a plan, a corrective action plan to address the 10 deficiencies, as well as there were three other deficiencies that were holdovers from the 2014 audit. We decided to start next year's capital budgeting process this year, which would include having every department look forward for 6 years so that they could justify and put down on paper what their capital plans are. This will give us greater control and accountability going forward. We looked at various salary matters for the staff. We reviewed facts surrounding overspending in one department's 2015 capital budget, and we decided on some steps to ensure better control over all the departments in town in that regard. We reviewed and supported offering a new voluntary dental plan option that may save the town employees save the town some money. And then we looked at plans to prepare for impending retirements that are occurring among borough employees. And finally, we reviewed various options that surrounded existing but unexercised capital ordinances that had been authorized in the past. On switching gears on the Office of Emergency Management, the staff there, they continue to work with the vendor to have the emergency generator installed at the United Methodist Church. Jonathan, you may have a more up-to-date understanding than I do, but that was the last I understood as of a few days ago.
There's a resolution.
Okay.
The generator supposedly out of the contractor's facility,
Yeah.
so they're just waiting to run up a couple of days.
It's been a long trip. We thought it would be installed around before the winter. Now we're lucky to get it in before the winter of 2016 coming up. Yeah. And finally, the OEM staff has met with the flood sensor vendor with respect to the new sensors that we're going to be installing in the brook. They met with the vendor last week. He'll be sending them a schedule for installation and to help them formalize what the request to Suez is going to be in terms of seeking their permission to put a sensor in the reservoir. That's part of the package of sensors that we've agreed to purchase. That's all.
Good. Thank you. Moving on to discussion, the first item, the recreation sports agreements. Councilmember DeRosa is not here. I can tell you that we have accelerated our efforts this month because we established a deadline for this month, and I also have enlisted our recreation director to supplement Councilman's efforts in getting these agreements finally signed. And also the electronic recycling, we're going to get a recommendation from Councilman Karsich and DPW on that. Moving on to new business. I think this was covered already, Councilman? The extension of time on the grant for the train station, you kind of
Yes.
covered that already? Okay. Up to correspondence. First item, letter of resignation received from William Hahn as licensed sewer operator for the Borough of Hillsdale. May I have a motion to receive, approve, and file?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 2 is letter received April 13th, 2016, from Irwin and Sybil Grace, commending the DPW for a job well done during the bad storm we had in the beginning of April. May I have a motion to receive, approve, and file?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now moving down to resolutions, the consent agenda. We have resolutions 16-112 through 16-121. We are pulling 16-120. We will not be voting on that tonight. Does anyone have any others that need to be pulled for discussion or separate voting?
I request to postpone 16114 until the next meeting. Waiting on approval of the contract amendment from the state.
Okay. So 16114 will also be deferred until the next meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or anything now? Okay, we'll be voting on 16112, 16113, 16115, 16116, 16117, 16118, 19, and 16121. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have nothing on off consent. Now up to council commentaries. Let's start down on the right with Councilman Lundy. I did I? Yes. How about that? Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. Thank you, Ann. I'd like to open up the meeting for public comment. Anyone choosing to address the council, please come to the podium, identify yourself, your name and address.
Ann Cron, 187 Magnolia Avenue. Regarding the road program, right next to George White School on Liberty Avenue, just east of George White School, that road is collapsing. And every time I drive through there, it's collapsing even more. There's like a big hole that you can see into. And it...
Is it up the hill beyond George White School?
Yeah, it's just west of Scott Carsage's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the other thing, I just wanted to mention one thing while you're thinking about the electronic recycling. I have osteoarthritis, so I cannot use my hands a lot, and my knees are bad. Now, I can pay somebody to carry a television and maybe take it down to the DPW. I cannot get somebody to take it to Karlstad or wherever. So I just hope that when you're thinking about it, think about this, some of us who can't get this stuff where it should be going.
That certainly has been part of the conversation. That's why there's no policy change at this point in time. It's still being evaluated.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm for hire.
He'll go to Karlstad for you.
I'll go to Karlstad for you. You pay me the appropriate amount.
Some of these TVs are pretty big, John. You sure you can handle them?
Well, I'm just going to have a whole house full of dead TVs if I...
You don't want that. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir?
Hi, Donald J. Oriolo. I'm Resolution R16120. I was just curious. I heard you mention you weren't going to be discussing it tonight. I was curious why.
We were requested to pull that by our construction code official.
Okay.
I have no other information other than that.
Is that proper to be pulled by construction code?
They get pulled all the time if there's a reason for it, yes.
They do? I see. Okay. When can I find out more information on that?
I would say tomorrow when she comes into the office.
I think she's away for the week.
Is she? I think she's away till Monday. Oh, okay, Monday.
So this will have to wait till the next mayor and council meeting?
Which is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Stephen Segalis, 125 Pascack Road. I was just very interested in some of the comments by the borough engineer in the course of his presentation concerning Centennial Field, and I'm wondering if we couldn't perhaps, or if the mayor and council wouldn't perhaps consider asking the borough engineer to perhaps provide an explanation so the townspeople could understand better whether we defaulted in our obligations following the completion of the capping, when we defaulted, why we defaulted, what additional costs the townspeople have incurred as a result of not following the post-closing plan, if in fact that happened, and under whose authority the decision to deviate from the plan was made. And certainly those are a lot of questions that can't be answered now, but perhaps it would be helpful.
I'm not sure. I heard the word default, but I'm not sure that that's a fact. But
well, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's fair that we should discuss this with our borough engineer and provide further information.
terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the council? All right, with that, we'll close the meeting to the public. Being none, yes. Okay, now we're back up to council commentaries and starting down the end with Councilwoman Lundy.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Councilman Rocco?
I want to thank the Pascagoula Valley High School administration, the teachers, and the students for a great Seniors Day that was held on April 14th. I think there wasn't a senior there that didn't have a tremendous experience. Some of them were the grandparents or parents of students who were there. Everyone learned. They put on a great presentation of both technology and their processes, and I know people just had a great time, and they're looking forward to attending and executing another Senior Citizens Day next year. That's really good. Lastly, I just wanted to congratulate the Eagle Scouts, Patrick Cohn and Joseph Henney. They have their Eagle Court May 7th at 10 a.m. in the morning at Christ Lutheran Church. And also Brendan Caltavaturo at Troop 91. He has his court on May 17th at 7 p.m. at the same church. You know, I think back to 1961 when President Kennedy had scouts come to the White House, and he said, "You learn the qualities of perseverance. You come to understand something about nature and something about our country. After years of observation, I really believe that the experience you have is the best possible training you have to equip you for later life." I think that's an excellent quote from our president, former president.
Thank you. Thank you. Council President?
Just three things. Well, first I wanted to thank Denise for everything that she does. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I want to thank you for all your hard work. You help me all the time. You're very responsive. I think you're doing great. I also wanted to, again, I had brought it with me. It's the, Councilwoman Lewis mentioned it, it's hidden in plain sight, and what they do at George White is they set up a room, and then they invite parents into the room, and you can look around, and they teach you signs that will show if there is some drug use going on in your home. And, you know, do you know where to look, and do you know what to look for? And I went last year, and it was great, and it's May 16th, 7 to 9 p.m. Also, I was emailed by a resident of Hillsdale who is in law enforcement, and I wasn't aware that this happens, but I'm gonna, I don't usually do it, but I'm going to do it. So each year, law enforcement officers throughout the United States sort of pay the ultimate sacrifice. Many of them die leaving spouses and families behind to protect us. And the World Trade Center was a perfect example of that. And every year, police officers ride their bicycles to Washington, D.C., to the National Law Enforcement Memorial. And this year, Gerard Dargan, who is a resident of Hillsdale, is doing that. And he's looking for people to sponsor him. And he's riding for a friend, a colleague of his that lost his life to cancer from breathing toxic fumes from the World Trade Center tragedy. You can go to www.firstgiving.com. You can make a donation, and I think it's a very important cause. I was unaware that this happens every year, and I just wanted to mention it. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted two things. To comment on Councilman Rocco's comments about the high school. The students all enjoyed it as well. I had both my boys were involved in it, and they said it was just a great experience. My older son came home all excited. He hugged a senior, so because they were having such a great conversation, and just in that short time, they really had a bond. And he said it was just a great experience. So I wanted to comment from the student point of view that they really enjoy it as well. And then just a reminder, we can see the carnival is going on, and I find that roadway, just be careful when you're driving. It's not just kids there, but the parents with the kids in our auxiliary is there crossing people, and those of you who are going, try to walk over to the auxiliary so they can cross you rather than crossing randomly. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Borough Administrator.
Just really briefly, Mayor, Council, and residents at home, please be aware that due to the rain this week, paving is delayed on Yesler, Lafayette, and Beechwood. We haven't gotten a firm date yet. Thursday, it might be clear enough to pave, but we'll keep everyone informed. We don't have a firm date as of this date. Thank you.
Mr. Borough Attorney.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Ma'am.
I have a few things. Tuesday, May 17th is the last day to register for the primary election for new voters, so make sure you have that in. We do have the forms here. You can also get them online. Property taxes are due by May 10th without penalty. And then the last thing is the Hillsdale United Methodist Church is having their rummage sale May 13th from 9 to 7, and then May 14th from 9 to 1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I got a couple of things. First, again, I just want to reiterate what was said about our acting borough clerk. It's been an interesting 4 months, wouldn't you say? And I can't imagine what it would have been like if I didn't have your support. You do a great job. It's greatly appreciated. Also, I want to reinforce what was said about the fire department carnival is running this week. It runs from May 2nd to May 7th. And it seems like every year they have bad weather, which is really tough. This is a major fundraiser for them. So if we have a couple of days when it's not raining, we really hope people can come out and support the fire department. It's a good cause. A mention was made about the tax increase for the local schools. It was approximately, I think, $160 or $150. $150. Also, this past weekend, the regional high school district put out their report, and there was a typographical error in it that listed Hillsdale's portion of the regional high school tax as dropping by $239. Unfortunately, it's the opposite. It's an increase of $239. And they've corrected that. We put out an email blast, but I just don't want anyone to believe that they were going to see a reduction. And I'm told that this is due to the fact that our Hillsdale's portion was reduced last year, so the increase seems to be a little higher this year. And that comes from a formula they get from the State Department of Education. It's not something that they calculate locally. And it is a formula that's based on assessed valuation of the town plus the number of students. And Hillsdale is providing an increase in students into the high school this year. So, and if you want more information, I strongly recommend you go to the Board of Ed meetings, because that's where all the information resides. Sapienza Gardens, we had a program scheduled for this Sunday that was rained out. It's gardening tips and guidance for outdoor enjoyment, and was being held this past Sunday, but rained out, and it should be rescheduled to May 22nd tentatively, but that'll be confirmed, and we'll put it on the website. And if you've never been back to Sapienza Gardens, it's really quite a delightful spot back in the woods, and it's some nice peaceful place to go in town. A couple of quick updates. We're still working on the waste management situation with their permit renewal with the DEP, waiting to hear back at this point in time. Likewise, the cell tower issue, and I informed the No Cell Tower group that I followed up with the COO of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, and they're still formulating what they're going to do, so they have not decided just yet. So hopefully we'll hear something within the near future, or maybe hopefully we won't. Could go either way. We're starting the preparations for Memorial Day, which is the only major parade and celebration we have that's town-wide. And We're looking forward to that, and we hope everyone will be around to celebrate it. And final item I have is if you look back on the wall over there on the left, you'll see that we have 4 new pictures. It seems that the practice was stopped in 1995 with Mayor Doug Groner, and in the last couple of months, I managed, despite 6 trips to Michael's to get them framed, back and forth, and getting nameplates. But we now have Mayor Tim O'Reilly, Mayor Dennis Deutsch, Mayor John Saponara, and Mayor Max Arnowitz now up on the Wall of Fame. So,
But the frames don't match the other frames.
and you know, Frank, I was going to delegate this to you, but I figured I'd rather get it done. Please forgive me. And that's all I have. So at this point in time, appropriate motion would be a motion to close.
Motion.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, look, you made it.